In the winter of 2014, the town of Ajnala in Punjab was quiet, ordinary, and unchanged for years. Nothing about it suggested that one of the most important historical discoveries of modern India was about to surface. Villagers gathered near an old, unused site on the outskirts of town to deepen a small depression in the ground. Their intention was simple: improve the area, clear the soil, and perhaps revive an old well they believed might still hold groundwater. There was no expectation of archaeology, no anticipation of history, just routine community work in a place locals had walked past all their lives. But as the team removed layers of earth, something unusual appeared. The soil texture shifted, revealing patterns that did not match the natural formation of the land. Then, pieces of bone began to emerge. First a fragment, then more. Villagers paused. They knew the area had folklore attached to it, stories passed down quietly for generations about a time long ago when people had been brought here and never seen again. But oral traditions are often difficult to interpret. People treat them as cautionary tales or distant memories with uncertain origins. Still, the discovery created a sense of unease and curiosity. Local elders stepped forward, recognizing the resemblance between the site and the khoo that older generations had described, a well believed to hold forgotten history. The digging continued carefully, and soon an entire layer of remains began to surface. The villagers realized that this was not a burial site of one or two individuals. There were many, far more than anyone expected. Authorities were informed immediately. By the next day, archaeologists, district officials, and researchers arrived with proper tools and began a disciplined recovery process. The excavation team cordoned off the area and documented every detail meticulously. The early stages showed that the remains were arranged in a way that did not resemble a ceremonial burial. There was no pattern, no structure, no markers. This raised important historical questions. Who were these individuals? How did they come to be here? Why were they in a well instead of a formal resting place? The media arrived quickly, increasing public attention. News channels broadcast live visuals of the excavation tents, the site layout, and the investigative procedures. What was once an unremarkable patch of land turned into a national conversation. But experts maintained caution. They avoided speculating. They explained that archaeology relies on evidence, not assumptions, and answers would emerge only through patient study. During the excavation, small metallic objects surfaced: coins, fragments of copper, and items resembling uniform accessories. These objects provided the first measurable clue. Preliminary dating techniques placed them around the mid-19th century. That period, 1857 to 1858, is deeply significant in Indian history as it marked widespread unrest across the Indian subcontinent. Researchers cross-checked the findings with historical records from the region and discovered references to events involving groups of soldiers in the vicinity of Lahore and Amritsar around the same time. Local historians re-examined archival documents, including administrative reports written by British officers during the 1857 period. One document referenced a well in Ajnala used to dispose of individuals after a conflict. It was a brief mention, almost an afterthought, but it aligned geographically with the newly discovered site. Forensic teams transported a sample of the remains to labs for scientific examination. Early analysis confirmed these were adult males. There was a noticeable consistency in age range and physical attributes, which hinted at a group rather than unrelated individuals. But the most important questions remained unanswered. Why were they all together? Why were they so far from their native regions? And why was their story never widely documented? When DNA analysis began, months later, it opened new possibilities. And when historical researchers revisited the accounts of the 26th Native Infantry, soldiers recruited from the Gangetic Plains who had been stationed in Lahore during the 1857 uprising, The pieces started aligning. But at this stage of the investigation, in early 2014, nothing was certain. The excavation had uncovered the remains. The artifacts had provided dates. The archives had supplied possible references. But the complete story, the human story, was still hidden beneath layers of history. The discovery at Ajnala was no longer a local curiosity. It became a point of national significance, a historical puzzle unfolding before the country's eyes. For the villagers who had lived beside the well for generations, the moment was emotional. They realized they were standing on land connected to a forgotten chapter of India's past. As experts evaluated the site, they agreed on one thing. The well at Ajnala held far more than physical remains. It held a narrative lost for more than a century, a narrative involving soldiers, travel across regions, conflict, escape, capture, and a disappearance that left families thousands of kilometers away without answers. This is where part 1 concludes, at the point of discovery, with evidence emerging but no full explanation yet. The excavation revealed the scale of what happened. The archives hinted at a larger incident. The early forensic clues suggested a shared identity. And the villagers' oral history proved that memory can survive, even when written records do not. Part 2 will uncover how these individuals reached Punjab in 1857. What events led them to Ajnala, and how the well became their final location. It is a chapter rooted in India's history, shaped by movement, decisions, and circumstances that changed lives forever. Subscribe and follow Beyondnow India and comment Ajnala for part 2. Don't miss how the hidden history of 1857 finally comes into focus.